Good morning. We're here at my home. We're in lockdown at the moment, so my sister who lives with me is behind the camera and we're going to share it a little bit. So we'll be passing the camera back and forth and we'll see how we go. Now what we're going to be doing today is some spring brood checking. So we're going to be looking in here, seeing how this hive's going, and also we'll show you how to cut some of the comb out and relieve the brood nest from congestion, and that just limits the swarming tendencies. So stay tuned. Okay, so if you've got questions, just put them in the comments below and we'll get to answering those, and we might be able to dial up Trace and get her to read out those questions as well. So first thing to do is get your smoker going. Now let me see, here we go. I've got it going already. What you want is some nice cool puffs of smoke, and I'm going to smoke my hands just to limit the mammal smell that I have.
Yes, please.
And then a little bit of smoke into the entrance of the hive.
Let's see if I can.
Now, all I'm going to do is put the smoker right in the entrance here and give it a couple of good puffs, and that's all we need to do. You'll notice the sound of the hive. Don't know if you can hear that. The tone of the hive changes when you add some smoke. If you leave it a little bit, then they calm down, and that's when it's appropriate to start pulling the hive apart. I'm going to leave that smoker near the entrance, just so the bees get a little whiff of smoke as they're coming home, and that will also have a calming effect. So looking from the outside of the hive, these bees, there's a reasonable number in there, but they're not really tightly clustered yet. Sometimes you can't even see the comb, but still the numbers are getting up, so we should think about splitting this hive as the you could be damaging your back. Okay, so when lifting a hive, it's a good idea actually to keep the weight close to your body. Now ideally you would be lifting from this surface here, so you take the door off, and from on the other side. But the way I've got this situated in my garden, I'm actually going to use these points as the handle and just rock it backwards and take it away. Next thing you need to do is, now I don't have an excluder on this hive, and that's a choice I've made to just keep an eye on it and make sure the queen isn't laying in the flow frames. Some queens do, some queens don't. This one has been with me for about 4 years, and I believe it's the same queen. I've had her on the stage at TEDx.
Is this the TEDx?
Yeah, this is the TEDx hive.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we harvested honey with the bees in it. I'm quite fond of this hive here. Now, don't forget to protect yourself, especially when you're new to beekeeping. Wear your gloves, wear your bee suit. Okay, I'm just doing up them. And if you've got any questions, put them in the comments and we'll read those out in a minute.
Yeah, we're going to dial Trace in.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now, after loosening up this corner as well, is just rock this backwards towards me, like that. Bearing in mind it's quite heavy.
Yeah.
And I'll put this aside. Now it's good to rest it on something so that any bees underneath don't get lot easier to move them aside and lift them.
I often start with that one because often this one has brace comb to the edge of the box.
Okay, so second one in. It's
Second one in, that's, yeah, usually, but again, like you said.
Okay, so I can go sideways a little bit here, just breaking the comb from the end bars. Then it's a case of putting your J-hook underneath with one hand, bearing in mind you'll have your gloves on new to beekeeping. I don't mind a couple of stings every now and then, so I prefer it. Now, as I'm lifting that, I'm seeing a little bit of comb issues touching each other, so I'm going to pull this one over a bit further if I can. And see if we can get out without damaging the comb surface. It's a little bit tricky, that one actually. We might go the next one over. So I was just noticing that the comb was catching on the other one, so I put it back down to save disturbing it. I'm levering these frames apart. Which is all worker bees waiting to emerge. So when they emerge into the hive, there's going to be so many more baby bees ready to take on the chores of the hive. First thing they do is clean the cells they came out of, and then they set to work with lots of different jobs. Over here you can see some bee bread where they've scraped off the pollen from their hind legs, packed it into the cells with their heads, topped it with a little bit of honey, and they let it ferment into a nice sourdough bread. Makes it easier to test, just like a good sourdough bread that we eat.
There's a drone bee as well, a couple of drones. You want to point them out?
There's one here.
Yeah.
Drones are good ones to pick up if you want to show them to your kids because they don't have stingers. And then this is honey around the edge. It's typical for the bees to keep a little bit of honey around the edge. It's a good thermal mass that helps regulate the temperature in the hive. They're really trying to keep it at a nice stable temperature for their brood. Beautiful. Have a little look on the other side here. This side's got some brood too, and some uncapped brood down the bottom. So we'll look down there. There's some young larvae in this section. If you have a close look,
If we can have a look.
you might even see some bee eggs down the cells, which are a tiny grain of rice. A little bit hard to pick up on this camera. You'll need your glasses on if you wear glasses to see the tiny little egg in the bottom.
Yeah, I could get the macro lens on.
Yeah. Mira's our macro star. You've seen. Now they're a little bit
Yeah, that smokes.
a little bit upset today.
It's a bit of a grey day. I'm going to just try and do some multitasking here, seeing as we can't see that, but can we see? There's the bee bread, all macro.
You might need to speak up slightly, Mira.
Oh, really? Okay. Sorry, I was mumbling. I was just trying to multitask.
Okay.
I couldn't see the eggs though with the macro.
Good one. All right. So In spring, it's a good idea to alleviate some of the pressure in the hive. Now, if it gets too crowded and there's not enough room for the queen to do her amazing job of laying eggs, she might lay up to a couple of thousand a day in full flight. There's not enough room, then that is the primary swarming trigger. Good idea to get ahead of the curve, give them some space. You want to keep your queen rather than half of them flying away. You can't spend all day hanging around waiting for your hive to swarm. So a better idea is to take a split as spring approaches, or get in there and just alleviate some of the space. So today we'll show you how to do that. Now what we might do is find a comb. Typically the ones on the edges just have honey and not brood, so they're the ones you can cycle out, and you can grab the darker ones from the middle, move them to the edge and cycle out that darker old comb over time. Good one to take out, but let's just see if it's got any brood on it. So I'm looking closely now for any brood that's on this frame. I can't see any. You can see it has been used for brood in the past, but I'm not seeing any brood there, and I'm not seeing any brood there. And this is a good one to cycle out because you can see they've gone a bit wonky here. They're not even of comb, this old dark comb, and they've basically made the cells a bit lopsided. So I'll just show you how to do that. Now if you're using naturally...
Make sure the queen's not roaming around out there.
Okay, good idea.
Just double check. Always good to double check.
Looking for the queen. I can't see her on this frame, so let's just shake the bees in case she is there. Now when you're shaking bees in, just give it a good hard shake like this. That gets most of the bees off. The remaining ones you can brush off with a bit of foliage or a bee brush, and then you'll be ready to cut some comb out. Now if you've got questions, put them in the comments below and we'll get to answering them shortly.
Yeah.
So I'm just flicking off the remaining bees here. And the great thing is
In the comb.
so you need some kind of tray. I've got the lid of a tub here. And what we're going to do is just put this right down there like this. And now this is a pretty wild looking old piece of comb, but it could still be nice to chew on if you're having a party or anything like that. And you can cut sections out for a cheese platter or whatever you like. So bearing in mind there is a strip along the top here, just the comb guide, so we don't want, otherwise it's a case of just cutting around the edge. Okay. And down the side, just like that. And once you get to there, you're going to need to cut that all the way off. There we go. And that'll just fall right out. So there you go, some honeycomb to harvest as well. Then you can get in. Some beekeepers like to keep everything whistle clean. Others like to leave the remaining wax for the bees just to reuse. So we can pop that straight back in now. Now where we choose to do that is important in terms of alleviating that swarming tendency. So you usually go, if you're doing 2 of these, which wouldn't be a bad idea, you probably go here and here. So leave a brood cluster, but let them expand onto this frame. So this is not a bad position to put your fresh one for the bees they'll get in there and draw their comb quite quickly. There'll be a whole lot of new area for the queen now to lay on. There we go. Beautiful. So we should also find an older, darker one to cycle out and put on the edge, so all the brood hatches out of it. Next time that can be the one we cut out of the edge, and that way you're continuing this cycle of cycling out the old wax that's been used for a few seasons and giving them a fresh start. Okay, I might just add a little bit of smoke again. The smoke has gone out, so a few more things, find a nice dark old comb and we'll put that towards the edge.
Yeah, and I wondered if Trace had any questions from...
Trace, have we got you dialed in?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, any questions coming through?
We've
Yeah, great. And look, just
Trace
a
is
couple
hiding
of
in Cedar's
comments
pocket.
too. You guys are freezing a little bit, so a few people have sort of noticed is just talking about that. Just it's a bit glitchy, but anyway, we're hanging in there.
Okay.
Look, one of the questions that come in is a guy, he's got 2 brood boxes on, and just wondering if could he just take one brood box off and then do the split like that?
You certainly can. Some people choose to do that, where you run a double brood, and then it's a case of doing a bit of shuffling, making sure there's bee eggs in both boxes. The one without will raise a new queen, or you can buy in a queen and make sure you're putting it into the one without the queen. So basically you'd just be taking your double brood, making sure you're shuffling the frames around to get some good brood in each of them and putting that one beside it. And that can be a great way to do a split. There's quite a few videos on how to do various different types of splits on our YouTube channel and also at thebeekeeper.org.
Cool.
Fantastic. There's a bit of a lag here, so I'm hoping I'm not interrupting you there now.
Go for it.
Okay. Look, when you get your nuke, Francine's asking, do you put the empty frames together or do you checkerboard them to stop cross-comb?
I like to do a little bit of both. So generally, about 3 frames together in the middle. Great question.
Great question. Bruce is asking, does red honey always mean it's tainted?
Does what? Red?
What was the phrase? Something honey?
Oh, red, the colour red.
Oh no, red honeys just depends on what flowers they forage on. Around here, almost always my honey is tainted red, except for in the springtime where we get the wild quince and the ironbark coming in, and then you get those really light yellow colours. The rest of the time, which is our coastal heathland flowers, so it just depends what they're foraging on.
Fantastic.
We'll have a
I think we had a little freeze there. Daniel in Warragul in Victoria would like to know, when should they put the flow hive on? Is it too soon? Hive is busy at the moment and it's a really beautiful day in Warragul today.
Okay, well, spring does come a bit early here in Australia. So basically, if you open your hive and it looks like this with all of the frames drawn out and lots of bees, then it's time to put the super on. But if your brood frames are still a bit empty, then you can leave that super off. So it's about tuning in with the bees and seeing when they're bringing in resources, because the idea is you want to, if it's still a bit cold and they're not doing much, then just leave it small as a single box. But if they are bringing in resources, there's pollen coming in, there's nectar coming in, the bees are getting busy, and there's lots of bees in your box, then go ahead and put the super on.
Right. Mel's saying that their hive is always getting cross, like touching each other, getting cross-cut. Any tips for that?
So that's the number one thing to do. But if you can, keeping it level is another thing. So we've put this level on the box in the sideways direction. Because if you imagine if the box is on a bit of a tilt, they will follow with gravity, which could have the comb running down onto one of the other frames. So that's another thing. But just keep fixing it up. Eventually you'll get some straight frames and they'll follow suit after that. Now, if you're really having trouble, you can of course put some foundation sheets in to get them building straight that way.
Can we get in here?
Yeah, okay, let's pull some more frames out and see if we can find a nice dark one to move to the edge, because we're cycling out some of the darker ones. Next time we'll be able to cut the comb out of that. All right, here we go. So this one looks like a pretty old frame. Probably one of the original ones this hive was split from, who knows. Here we go. So you can see this one has been used many times by the bees. Good one to cycle out.
Oh, wonky.
They're starting to go a bit wonky, which isn't unusual. They've got some brood over here, so we can't take it straight out. What we're going to have to do is move it to the edge, and then after that brood's emerged, so there is eggs in this frame, yes.
Oh, good.
So we know we
try
have a
and see?
laying queen.
Where's my macro?
I'm looking for the eggs. Some of the placement isn't as good as it could be.
Oh,
Down
look
the
at those
cells.
pollen pants there. She's like,
So my sister's going to do an amazing
I'm going to
one-handed
try and do a one-handed.
double filming job.
Can you see the pollen pants? She's
Look at that
in
pollen.
there checking. She's actually looking to offload, I think. She's checking the cell, and then they usually back down, and they use a little spur on their middle leg to spear the pollen baskets and knock them off into the cell. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly what she's doing. She might actually be offloading something else, some nectar, or she might be packing down the pollen with her head. They like pack it down. Is she gonna? Are you gonna? No, didn't like that cell. I was hoping we might see her
Beautiful.
offloading that pollen.
So you can see some eggs down here, but I'm not sure if you'll actually be able to see them on camera. It's a bit of a tricky thing
Ooh.
to see
Yeah,
some eggs.
we can see them.
Little tiny grain of rice in the bottom.
Let's see if we can do
Do the double.
the double one-handed filming again.
Whoa, right down the cell.
Oh,
Try another cell.
nah, it's a bit
Bit dark in there.
bit dark and a bit hard one-handed.
It's a bit of magician tricks when Mira gets it. And you
Oh, Trace, we can hear you. Maybe you could mute your mic.
get 11 days. Beautiful.
Nice.
Okay, so as I said, we're going to put that close to the edge of the hive.
No queenie.
Not seeing the queen, no. But she must be around somewhere. So what I need to do now is make a little space. And I'll do that just by levering from the edge of the box like this. So choosing that space there, and bees, this will be the one that the bees that we can wait for.
Oh,
And the black cockatoos are flying past. Check them out.
hey.
They're saying there's some rain coming, which there might be. Oh, the bees think there's some rain coming. They've gotten a bit upset about that. So we're using this garden mulch, which burns quite quickly, so I have to remember to top it up every now and then. And away we go again. Okay. So that one's sitting nicely on the edge. And we've got our frame that we cut the comb out of there. What I do is
kilos worth of honey. So just wondering the possibility of it swarming sort of coming up for summer. Should he add another super or do a split? His worry is if they do a split, he doesn't really want another hive, as his wife has said to him. He's already got 2, and Simon, you don't need any more beehives. So should he just give the split away?
Yeah, you can give the split away, definitely.
if you don't want the split, then somebody else surely will. That's splits rather than the spring management. It's a form of spring management that definitely alleviates and makes a lot of space in the brood nest and will limit any swarming tendencies. But if you don't want to take a split, you can either add another brood box or another super to give them some space, or you can get in there and just make some space like we have today by cutting some of the comb out and making sure they've got some new area to build on again, and away they go with the queen laying eggs on fresh comb.
I've just seen a bee producing wax out of the glands, and I'm trying to find her so that we can show you. But I think she's run off.
Oh wow, okay, a little rare moment, spotting a bee producing wax. That once they've produced the wax from the wax gland, Then what they do is they massage it with their mandibles and start shaping that wax.
We've got Esther's kids coming in saying, question, added a second brood box last week as they had so many bees, but yesterday had drones on the landing board. It's still very cold, around 14 degrees. Is there any problems with that?
Dropped her.
Okay, well, if it's still very cold, you just need to be a little bit aware of not when you've got open brood. The capped brood can handle being out of the hive for a while, but if you've got uncapped brood and it's cold, they can suffer from cold shock. So the best time to pull apart your hive is in the mid-morning to mid-afternoon on a nice warm day. So just pick and choose. If you get some warm days, you can go ahead and get in and do some beekeeping, see where it's all up to, and take it from there.
So we've got a lot of drone brood on this frame and a bit of stores, bee bread stores down here.
Look at that. There's some nice colours in there. Very nice.
And there's a few walking around with some orange and some yellow pollen pants, which is awesome. Good to see that they're bringing in pollen. And that's a, let's see, what else is going on in there? Everything looks okay. There's a patch of honey down the bottom there. But mostly this is drone brood.
Yeah, there's, so we've got someone tuning in from Sydney, just wondering whether they should take off their super during winter. They live in Sydney.
Sydney, I think most people in Sydney don't, but it would be really about, the best way to sort of assess that would be to check in with local beekeepers. So find your local bee club and see what they do. They don't even need to have a flow. It's just what they would normally do with a Langstroth beehive. So if the temperature gets cold enough there that you need to remove the super, but like here where we are, Sydney's not that far south. What would you think, Cedar?
Look, I would be tempted to leave the super on all winter unless your hive's getting weak, in which case you might want to downsize it a bit and baby it a bit back into action again.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a honey frame, and that's the frame that we've replaced. Alright, let's see what else we can find in here. So I'm also looking for any signs of queen cells or queen cups, just because that would tell me that they're, oh, look at that brood. Lovely.
Beautiful brood there in the middle of the frame.
And lots of pollen pants running around. Oh, hey Queenie.
There you go.
Slap bang in the middle. control. She actually isn't. She's kind of at the mercy of the colony. If the colony decides that, you know, she's getting a bit old and maybe not laying so well, they will draw new cells and make a new queen and actually kill her or get rid of her. I had 2 queens in one hive recently, and so it was the mother and the daughter, and the queens were waiting until the daughter had mated and was laying before they got rid of the old queen. So just in case something happened with the virgin queen. So it's fascinating inside a beehive. It's just fascinating. I swear I learn something new every time I go in the hive. Oh, it's so glad that we saw her. Awesome. Well, I'm going to pop that one back in where it was. Everything looks good on that. Some nice, strong brood. Any more questions, Trace?
Yeah, just asking, would a hybrid 3 fit on a flow hive 2? Would a hybrid 3 super fit on a flow hive 2 hive?
Yes, you can do that. There is a mismatch with the roof though, so it depends where you put it. If you put it in between, just above the brood nest, it will fit. If you put it on top, it'll just sit up a little bit. It still works to put your roof on, but it'll sit up a little bit on the inner cover.
Great. Bruce is asking, will bees focus on only honey during a nectar flow? His bees are not finishing their frames before filling with honey.
Oh, so they're not finished, so they're building and filling at the same time.
Looks like it, yeah.
Yeah, well, I know that we usually don't rearrange a brood nest, but because we are doing spring management, we are kind of shuffling it around a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just pop this one here for a minute with our other brood frame, and on our brackets. And I'm going to guess that this edge frame is probably all honey, and it looks like an older frame. So let's just have a quick peek, see what's going on there. Heavy as. I can tell that's honey just by the weight. So the weight of a honey frame is much heavier than the weight of a brood frame. Oh, look at that. That's a beautiful frame of honey. So generally we're seeing in this hive that they're getting a little bit honey bound. They've got lots of honey and not a huge amount of brood. So if we wanted to do more cut comb, we could cut some from this frame.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you keen?
Yeah, let's alleviate some space for the queen. So
are you happy to cut some out of this one?
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yep.
I reckon it's a pretty good looking frame. I think the kids would be happy too.
Yeah, that's right.
In fact. So like Cedar said before, when you move around bees, you move slowly and calmly and gently, except for when you want them to get off something. And that's when you do a strong shake, because otherwise you just kind of annoy them and they hold on stronger. And then
If you don't have nice soft foliage, then a bee brush might be a better option.
yeah,
Or maybe you're on a rooftop with no foliage at all.
That's true, that's true.
So,
I did have a beehive on a balcony, so there wasn't any foliage around. So I was definitely using my bee brush up there. All right.
so as we cut out this honeycomb, is there any more questions, Trace?
Might just get those last little group of bees off down there. Watch out, girls.
Looks like
Oh, maybe the connection's dropped.
Oh,
No.
Sorry, that was me. I had my mute button on. It's so high. It's just so high tech here.
All right. So,
still got a couple there to flick off.
How long does a queen generally live for?
So she can live for up to 6 years, but generally she'll normally be superseded prior to then. So she'll comfortably be in there for 3 or 4 years, and then what you might find is the laying slows down, and the bees themselves will actually raise another queen to supersede her. Or a beekeeper comes along and decides to manage the process. Here we go. You can just cut it straight onto the top of this one.
should we take it all or just a section?
You can take it all. Now, bearing in mind it's fallen out, I think this is a ratty old comb guide.
Yeah, so we want to get rid of this
I've
actually.
made, and it's dropped out as they were building it.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so all we're doing now, just to run through it, is we're doing some spring management. We're cutting out some older comb from the hive, from the edges. We're putting those frames back towards the centre of the hive, and that way the hive's got lots of room to build more comb, and the queen's got lots of room to lay, and away we go with limiting the swarming tendencies of your hive in spring.
Might even actually replace this comb completely because the comb guide has fallen out, but we might be able to fix it. Going wonky there.
You will actually find that you can just put that straight back in because you've got a guide of the wax that's left at the top. So we're cutting all the way around the edges there, and we've got a nice big piece of honeycomb, and you can just put that straight back in like that if you want to.
Transfer to the brood box.
Okay, so you might want to wait just a little bit longer. Make sure they're really busy and flying, and you've got a nice warm sunny day to put it into the new box. Having said that, you can't always do things when it's ideal for the bees. You can get close, obviously you don't want to do anything that's too harmful, but sometimes perhaps you just need to put it into the new hive while they're there. They'll be okay. You can start a new as well, so you could go either way there, but ideally you'd wait a little bit longer till the weather's warmer.
So I've popped that one in Cedar next to that frame that had the queen, to give them more space to draw brood, and I know that this frame we pulled earlier is a brood frame, so I'm going to pop this one in next to that one just to try and keep the brood a bit more together, even though we're adding those new frames. We are encouraging the bees to draw space for the queen to lay. So I'll pop that one in there. And then lucky last is a honey frame, which I think we can just put back on the edge. So they've still got plenty of honey in this hive, even though we removed 2 full frames of honey, because this is honey too and this is honey. So they were definitely feeling
So what you can do if you want to, now let's see if I can get this macro.
She's got
shot
some light
here.
pollen on her legs.
There we go. Look at that, that's cool. So if you do want to make a feeder, then add a teaspoon of salt to a big bottle of water, and what that'll do is give it some minerals, and the bees will like that better. And if you put that water in a tray of sorts where you can, so the bees don't drown in it, it's like a whole lot of pebbles or something like that, that will really help the bees. You'll find even sand in water, they'll prefer that to just a tray of water.
Well, I was wondering whether they're foraging in your boat today.
They could be. I've got an outside shower here, and you know when the bees are starting to get a little bit low on water because they come for the pebble area, and you get a whole lot of bees there having a little drink on the stones in the mud.
It's a little bit dangerous having an outdoor shower after the surf. You gotta watch out, you don't tread on a bee.
Yeah, but most of the time they don't go there. It's just when they can't find much else. So most of the time the bees are fine. You don't really need to put out water for them. If you're in an extremely dry area and there's no dams or anything nearby, then putting out some water could be a good thing. But as I said, most of the time you don't have to worry about water. The bees will forage far to find some water to cool their hive. Thank you very much for all your questions. Tune in again next week. Also let us know what you would like us to cover. Mira's found something else to look at here, which is super cool. Let's see if we can You might have noticed the clear view hood. We mentioned that once before. It's something that's now an option with our bee suits. It comes with them. You can zip it in or zip it out as you like. Let us know what you think of it. It's really
super
handy.
cool if you like filming your bees.
Yeah, looking through the mesh does get a bit tiresome
so
after
I
a while.
can really focus on, it's easier to see eggs. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I can actually see what I'm filming. Awesome. Thanks, Cedar.
Nice
we'll
one.
just pop this one back together.
Tuning in.